Late yesterday, the Naval Air Systems Command made the following announcement. Out of an abundance of caution following the AFSOC operational stand-down, Naval Air is instituting a grounding bulletin for all V-22 Osprey variants December 6th. This decision comes after the V-22 Osprey mishap on November 29th off the shore of Yakushima, Japan. Preliminary investigation information indicates a potential material failure caused the mishap, but the underlying cause of the failure is unknown at this time. While the mishap remains under investigation, we are implementing additional risk mitigation controls to ensure the safety of our service members. The Joint Program Office continues to communicate and collaborate with all V-22 stakeholders and customers, including allied partners. The safety of pilots and aircrews is our number one priority. I've mentioned this on the channel before, and as a reminder and in the spirit of full disclosure, I worked on the V-22 program from 2002 to 2005. I got there right after the program's return to flight after a 2-year halt in the wake of 2 mishaps in 2000 that killed 23 Marines. The first one was during a nighttime exercise in Marana, Arizona, where an Osprey was descending too fast and got into vortex ring state, which is a rotary wing phenomenon where the descent rate exceeds the downdraft created by the blades and the airplane becomes uncontrollable. The V-22 flipped over and hit the ground, killing all 19 aboard. The second one occurred at Marine Corps Air Station New River in North Carolina when an Osprey was on final approach and the pilot in command got a warning light that he repeatedly attempted to extinguish, not realizing that every time he did so, the prop rotor pitch went to 0, which caused the V-22 to lose significant altitude. He continued to try and extinguish the light until the airplane crashed in the swamp short of the runway. All 4 crew members were killed. At that point, the program was halted and nearly canceled. The Marine Corps petitioned lawmakers, reminding them of the promise that tilt-rotor technology offered over the H-46 and how many jobs building them would create in their districts, and as a result, they managed to keep the V-22 program alive. The basic pitch for the Osprey was that it could go twice as fast and travel twice as far as the CH-46 Sea Knights it was replacing. Under the auspices of facilitating better communication, the program office was reorganized so that the reps from the 2 prime contractors, Bell and Boeing, were co-located with the Marine Corps, Air Force, and Navy acquisition officers at Naval Air. The developmental test program was redesigned to focus on high rate of descent testing and the other issues that contributed to the mishaps that got the program shut down. The chief test pilot was a Harrier pilot instead of a helicopter pilot, and let's just say he came at the program with a more appropriate and effective eye. Developmental test was followed by operational test, which was handled by VMX-22, a new squadron the Marine Corps stood up specifically to get the Osprey through Oppaval. The commanding officer was Colonel Bluto Walters, who was later the Assistant Commandant for Aviation. Bluto was a great leader, and that ready room was full of all-star aviators, and the maintenance shop was full of all-star maintainers. So between that and the efforts of talented engineers at the program office at Naval Air, the fact that the V-22 passed Oppaval and was approved for full-rate production wasn't a big surprise. Give any emerging capability enough time and funding, and it will succeed, as we're proving with F-35 now. But that's not to say there weren't issues with the V-22 along the way during the second chapter of testing. As we're also proving with the F-35 program, when it takes decades to field a weapon system, there will be inherent issues that pop up, like personnel turnovers that jeopardize corporate knowledge, parts obsolescence, and subcontractors going out of business. For instance, to save weight, the V-22 has titanium hydraulic tubes instead of stainless steel ones. And in 2006, the program office found out that the subcontractor, a company called Ankotech, had used Russian titanium to make the hydraulic tubes used in the Osprey. When the program officials attempted to contact Ankotech to fix the problem, they discovered that the company had gone out of business the year before without telling anyone, which in turn created a scramble to find another subcontractor, as well as a PR disaster we had to tackle head on. But in spite of those issues, the Osprey was fielded and used extensively in real-world operations by not just the Marine Corps, but also the Air Force Special Operations Command that flies the CV-22, which can carry more fuel and has sensors and EW gear that allows it to fly into contested areas in a way that other models of the tilt-rotor can't. And the Navy has started using the CMV-22 as a replacement for the C-2 Greyhound in the carrier onboard delivery role. And the Japanese also have 17 V-22s used by their self-defense force. The V-22 isn't the Lone Ranger here either. Look at all the episodes we've done in recent months about airplanes being grounded, F-35s, Chinooks, and T-45s. And like every airplane the military uses a lot, issues have emerged over the last 15 years that affect the Osprey's safety of flight. And as I used to say to reporters and government officials who were critics of the program based on its checkered past, the Osprey isn't inherently dangerous, but it is subject to the laws of physics. The same things that make it twice as fast as a helicopter make it challenging to operate. Because their radius is smaller and the disk loading is higher, the prop rotors generate a lot of downwash, which creates extreme brownout in desert environments and makes landing challenging for pilots as they lose visual reference close to the ground. Several V-22 mishaps in recent years have been attributed to brownout. That brownout also causes sand to be ingested by the engine that exceeds what the air particle separator can handle, and over time, that causes damage that forces engines to be replaced. In fact, when I flew with the V-22 squadron stationed at Bastion in southern Afghanistan in 2010, about half of their airplanes were on the flight line awaiting engine changes. The engineering behind the tilt rotor places a lot of force on key components. The way I had it explained to me by the chief engineer when I first joined the V-22 program in 2002 was, imagine spinning a bicycle wheel horizontally at the end of your arm and then rotate that wheel vertically and feel the pressure on your elbow. So in the most recent case, while the Naval Air statement doesn't identify the root cause of the fleet-wide grounding, it most likely has to do with the clutch assembly within the prop rotor gearbox that drives power from the Rolls-Royce engines to the prop rotors. In fact, part of the V-22 fleet was grounded last year due to hard clutch engagements that officials underplayed at the time, saying that the issue was a component within the gearbox known as the input quill assembly that had reached high time and needed to be replaced. But that course of action didn't stop the hard clutch engagements, which occur in flight at certain power settings and when the Osprey is converting from helicopter mode to airplane mode and back again. When the clutch slips, the flight control system senses a torque disparity and attempts to prevent thrust asymmetry by adjusting the torque on the good engine to match the bad engine. If the system senses that the bad engine has failed altogether, it will engage an interconnecting drive shaft designed to power both prop rotors with only one engine. But if the bad clutch rapidly engages and disengages, it could cause the system to repeatedly attempt to engage that interconnecting drive shaft in a way that ultimately compromises its structural integrity, resulting in a thrust asymmetry that will cause the pilots to lose control and crash. Again, at this point, NavAir has not identified the root cause for the grounding that follows the CV-22 crash off of Okinawa last week that killed 8 Air Force airmen, but they will ultimately find it. It's just a matter of how much time it will take. Plus, there aren't any other options. As with the F-35, the Pentagon right now is committed to the V-22, and it would take decades to field a replacement. So as reported by USNI News, the grounding impacts current operations in that it affects the 4 deployed Bataan Amphibious Ready Group and the Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group. The 3-ship Bataan ARG is embarked with the MV-22Bs flown by the Golden Eagles of Marine Medium Tiltrotor Squadron 162, which is attached to the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit. The MV-22s are mostly aboard Bataan, which is currently in the Red Sea, but one is aboard the USS Mesa Verde located in the eastern Mediterranean. These Ospreys would be used if the U.S. decided to do an emergency evacuation of citizens should the Israel-Hamas war spread to other parts of the region. In other theaters, Navy CMV-22Bs assigned to the Titans of Fleet Logistics Multi-Mission Squadron 30 are responsible for logistics flights on and off the USS Carl Vinson, which is currently off the coast of Okinawa. As always, we'll be keeping our eyes on the situation and providing updates as they become available. So if you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss anything going forward. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please consider using the super thanks, the heart icon below, or become a patron at patreon.com/WardCarroll. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.